It's been a few days now since Jagex released their combat beta for some pretty big sweeping changes to RuneScape's combat system that will be taking effect at the end of February. They did this a little earlier this month with changes to range specifically, and they've gone ahead and expanded those changes to include mage and melee as well. The core objective, if you've read the blog, you know, is to sort of streamline combat and get rid of a lot of the bloat that has been present in the game for a while now. Ability bloat, muddy, inconsistent combat identities, things like that. And so what this video is going to be me sort of reviewing these changes and getting sort of a very basic level early impression on how combat is going to look in the future as I struggle through a very simple Carapac kill here. So I suppose without delaying anymore, we can go ahead and just jump right into first the changes and then some live kills to get an idea of what's actually changed. Let's start with ranged. This is an overview of what they've taken out of the game and what they've reinstated. A lot of those unused, sort of duplicative abilities, things like the Cave Horror abilities, Salt the Wound, and Dazing Shot, which also means a greater Dazing Shot. Needle Strike, which, not gonna lie, I'm gonna miss. There's custom dialogue for a boss when you actually use Needle Strike, which I always thought was cool. And then also Unload, which nobody uses anyways. They are putting Shadow Tendrils back, and there were no notes about what it does, which leads me to assume that it will do what it does now in the Legacy game. And there are no mentions of, what is it? I have to edit this out. Splinter Shards have also been removed. I'm going to cover that in a second as I go over the new abilities that they added. So let's take a look. So the first is that Splinter Shards ability has been reworked as this new Imbue ability. It's called Imbue Gales, and the primary changes are that it is free to cast. It's no longer an adrenaline ability. It grants you 6% adrenaline upon cast, which is beneficial because you're not losing out on sort of an auto attack to gain adrenaline. But the difference is that it is weaker, dropping from a 30% increase to a 20% increase, and it doesn't last as long. It only lasts 4.2 seconds. So combined with the 15-second uptime, you're not gonna get this as much as with Splinter Shards during the previous beta, which you could basically have 100% uptime and basically did the bulk of your damage. So this makes a much more situational ability that you'll kind of use as filler ahead of like big damage or those big rapid hit abilities. Following the Imbue Gales ability, we're going to look at the other Imbue that they added, which is Imbue Shadows. That applies another self buff. Unlike Imbue Gales, this does cost adrenaline because what this ability does is that it effectively replaces the Incendiary Shot ability. You spend 40% adrenaline and you get a 30-second buff where ranged attacks will generate 5% adrenaline on hit. On hit is probably the biggest thing to point out here because, as we've discussed, ranged is the on hit combat style. You've got things like Rapid Fire, Ricochet, which we're going to look at in a second, Snapshot, all these things that deal multiple hits, so you're not only building stacks with your ammunition, but you're also regaining lots of adrenaline at the cost of, 40%. You're going to get that back on basically a rapid fire, right? So you Imbue Shadows, maybe Imbue Gales, if they can be stacked, we'll have to test that out, right? Fire a rapid fire, your adrenaline's back up, and you're still getting boosted adrenaline for 20 more seconds. You can only have this up half the time, but it's definitely going to be something that you weave in with your Death Swiftness rotation, Split Soul rotations. It's definitely going to be something that you have up frequently. Bombardment was changed a little bit from the previous beta, mostly numbers. I believe the adrenaline cost is also lower, and it's got a much lower cooldown. It's not as much of a punch as it was before, but it's still, you know, a powerful area ability. There's not really much to go into. The numbers are all really straightforward. You know, AoE, 5.4 second cooldown, 150 to 180% damage. Pretty by the books. A little bit closer to how it was prior to the beta. And then at last, we're going to look at Rico and Grico. What they've done is Ricochet's default behavior is now the current live Ricochet behavior, where it will first hunt for additional targets, and then if they're not found, it will deal those extra hits to the primary target. What the Grico unlock now does is it ups the amount of hits by default to 6, so up from 2. So what this is you're basically getting the full effect of the Coroming buff by getting the greater Ricochet buff. And Jagex has said that they are going to look into a new effect for Grico in order to make up for this change. So you're not farming shadowy components. You know, you get Grico, boom, you've got full live game Grico right out of the gate. And now we'll have to wait and see what they come up with for Coroming. Pretty excited about that. I wonder what it could possibly be. With range out of the way, we're going to jump over melee and instead go to magic next, just because it's probably been changed the least. First, for the removed abilities, it's much similar to what we saw with ranged, the more powerful stun, the cave horror abilities, and then Rack as well, because Rack obviously is being replaced with the mage auto attack. Also Metamorphosis, which did have some situational use cases, but generally wasn't an ability a lot of people used. It might be sort of more burst damage if you knew you couldn't get a full sun rotation in, or something like that. Highly situational. I'm not surprised they're removing it at all. But as we can see, largely, I would say that mage has been the least affected. Their objective here is sort of to lean into what they've already established for mage, which are crits and bleeds. So, you know, Corruption Blast wasn't removed. There have been some significant reworks for sure, and we're going to look at the mage abilities now. We're going to start with Concentrated Blast, which has probably been changed the least out of all of the abilities that remained in the game. They're updating the animations to make things consistent between the lesser and greater variant of the ability. It's going to boost your critical chance per hit. As we can see, the difference between the base level and the greater level is 3%. It will still generate adrenaline, so this is sort of to be used in conjunction with your mage basic. It's not something like a necro ability that doesn't generate adrenaline but has a secondary effect. We're going to see more of those as we look through the abilities themselves. Concentrated Blast, relatively the same, no major changes. What it has had a major change is Sonic Wave, and the blog post only had a greater Sonic Wave up, but Sonic Wave has the same effect. What they've done is that they've removed the flow state buff, which wasn't very good. It was relatively unused, especially because Concentrated Blast was so much better. This has a 15-second cooldown, and what the greater flow buff does is that it reduces the cost of your next adrenaline-consuming ability, and it also gives you 9% adrenaline. So this makes it a great ability in general, just because you're not sacrificing adrenaline gain to save adrenaline. You get kind of to double dip into that. The standard Sonic Wave has lower numbers. I believe it's 6% adrenaline and saves you 10%. I'll have to check in the live game, which we are going to look at mage after I go through the ability list. Sonic Wave, though, it is decoupled from Concentrated Blast. Not the same cooldown. You can use both. And I think we're finally going to see some use out of this move that's been pretty neglected over the years. So that's pretty exciting. I can see how greater flow state will combo into things like Tsunamis and Sunshine and Omni Power really, really well. Dragon Breath has sort of been... it's almost reversed. Originally, you wanted to drop Combust on an enemy and then use Dragon Breath with the Carapat gloves. But now what this does is it simply will do additional damage to enemies that are combusted. I'm kind of curious as to what they're going to do with the Karapet gloves. Maybe some kind of ability cooldown, because Combust has a very long ability time now. You'll see in a minute. Or maybe it'll refresh the duration, really synergize with the bleeds. I'm not too sure. This also generates adrenaline, so again, you're not sacrificing adrenaline gain for this ability. So again, you're double dipping. It's a great trade-off. You know, similar to using something like Touch of Death or Soul Strike. Combusts has, I shouldn't say it has a long cooldown. That was a bit of maybe an exaggeration earlier. 18-second cooldown. It hits 10 times over every 2 game tints. And that means that this duration is going to be a 12-second duration. So really only 6 seconds of cooldown on this. The drawback, of course, being this is no longer a basic, and I'm putting air quotes up here, because it costs 25% adrenaline. So this is going to be something you need to think a little bit more about using when you're going to use it. You know, is Dragon Breath ready? Are you using these Sanctum weapons? Something like that. There's more thought into this ability, and that kind of goes hand in hand with Corruption Blast, which hasn't been removed, but no longer generates adrenaline as well. So it's kind of a trade-off of, do I want the extra bleeds? Am I using this as a filler ability? Because I really shouldn't. The point is to remove filler abilities, and we're going to see that with the next ability in a second. Chain. Similar to what they did with Gricko, Chain now has the default functionality of applying your next hit to 2 additional enemies. Of course, it will deal 75% reduced damage, so it's not busted, it's not game breaking. The attack itself isn't that strong, it only does up to 75% your ability damage. So, again, like I was saying, this is not meant to be a filler ability. That's what your Mage Basic is for. Now you need to be thinking critically about when you're using Chain. And of course, Greater Chain does the same thing that Gricko did, where it restores the default behavior of Coroming, bringing it up to 6 targets, and then the damage reduction is reduced to 50. So right, you Chain, and then you drop a Gothic Spec that does 10k to your main target. It's going to hit 5k on all your secondary targets, which I'd have to check the numbers. I think is what the live game currently does. So again, just more bringing things up to this point of no filler abilities. Think about what you're doing, similar to Necromancy. Don't waste Chain on a single target, especially. There's no point in using it. Be mindful about when you're firing your abilities. It's simplistic, sort of cleaning up of the combat, but there is thought to it. And thought takes us to our last ability, which is Runic Charge. This is a self-target buff. It lasts for 15 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. Obviously, it's consumed on your next attack, and what it does is it empowers your next ability based on what you're casting. You can see the numbers are below. It will boost the critical rate for Greater Concentrated Blast. It will boost the adrenaline saving cost of your next magic ability if you use Sonic Wave, and then Dragon Breath, it just boosts the damage. So this is the kind of thing you want to use when you're in between, right? You got a boss you can't target. You're running between 2 different Slayer targets, and you can squeeze in an ability. That's what this is for. A lot of players will do things like Anticipate or Freedom just to throw an ability in there, maybe gain some adrenaline. This doesn't give you adrenaline outright, but it does, again, it helps you by letting you queue up your next ability. You know, I'm running between Archglacier pillars, right? I can't target them. I go ahead, I use Runic Charge, and then as I'm kiting, as I'm running by away from the pillars, past the Archglacier, I throw Sonic Wave at it. And then I drop an Ember Staff spec or something, right? Save my adrenaline, use Runic Charge while I have that downtime. It's a very great ability. I think it matches well with Mage's style of being mobile, of building, and being very deliberate. So those are all the Mage changes. Let's see, Smoke Tendrils wasn't removed. I am curious as to what they're going to do with some of the other buffs. Things like Rack and Ruin come to mind. But we'll have to just wait and see what happens. And we'll take a look at the live game in a few moments. But now I want to go back and talk about melee. My favorite combat skill, which has always sort of been the neglected style, the hard style to use despite being incredibly powerful, a very risky, high risk reward style. It is unrecognizable in this beta. If you're unaware, melee had something like 30 abilities. And no, not in any small part due to having 2 combat skills. So they have completely, I mean, they've done more than Thanos snapped this. They have completely massacred the melee skill. I have played around with it a little bit. I'm not crazy about the changes, but we've still got a month or so until this goes live, so I'm hoping they make some improvements. But let's take a look at the list of removed abilities first. And yes, that's the full list. They've removed a lot of the sort of dynamic abilities that interacted. Things like Gloves of Passage at the moment are worthless. They've made some significant changes to bleeds. They've removed blood tendrils for now, which I'm going to talk about more later. Balance Strike is gone, so I'm wondering if I'll get a Gothic Sleeve replacement for that. The stronger stuns, a lot of the basics, a lot of the thresholds, and even some of the alts, Frenzy and Massacre, are both on there. Lots of stuff taken out. So let's look at what they changed and sort of the design concept behind it. And I'm going to look at Adaptive Strike first, because I think this is one of the more interesting changes, right? If you've meleeed, you've probably juggled weapons, you've probably done little tricks to eke out as many, we call them 188 basics as possible. And what they've basically done is they've removed Sever and they've replaced it with Adaptive Strike, which changes the ability based on whether or not you are dual wielding or using a single two-handed weapon. If you look on the left, you can see the dual wield version, which is 2 hits at 45 to 65%. And then if you look at the two-handed option, you're doing one ability at 90 to 110%. Those numbers add up to the same. The biggest difference, of course, is that the two-handed hit acts as an AoE. So it kind of replaces Cleave in a way. It's got a short cooldown of only 5-4 seconds, and it's fairly powerful. So you think Adaptive Strike single targets, Adaptive Strike multiple targets if you're dual wielding. And that is really going to be the essence of what they've done here. The other big change, because melee was always sort of the bleed style, despite bleeds being a mess, is Dismember. What they've done to Dismember is that they have made it sort of a chained ability, like Spectral Scythe from Necromancy. You'll cast Dismember once, which does a flat damage, 24-second cooldown, which seems high. You look at this next to Combust, and you're like, well, wait, this generates adrenaline. It's basic, sure, but it's weak. It only does 5 hits. It's got a 24-second cooldown. There's not a lot of uptime. It's barely doing 100% damage. But now it's a chained ability. So after you cast Dismember once, it effectively becomes Slaughter, although they keep the ability name, they just give it the Slaughter icon. If you cast Dismember again before it wears off, now we're doing 30 to 40% damage over 5 hits. And it does the added 3% damage if your target moves. So that's great for targets that are not immobile. A lot of bosses are mobile, many are immobile, so it's something you have to sort of weigh, right? If you're fighting Archglacier, these abilities aren't really worth using anymore. But let's take a look at what they do. So right, that's again 5 hits, 15% adrenaline, potentially 90 to 120% damage per hit if you walk your target, making it pretty powerful. And then the third cast is Dismember, which, well, it's always Dismember, but you know what I mean. It adds a third bleed, which will do 110 to 140% on that first hit, and then it does an additional 70% every 1.2 seconds for 6 hits. So this really is what ramps your damage up. The whole ability in total will cost you 50% adrenaline, which is fairly expensive. Melee is adrenaline starved, but it's also much different now in the current game with all the changes that they've made. So whether or not this will be a suitable replacement, we have to see. We have to see how it's going to wind up synergizing with the Masterwork Spear. Will they make some changes to the Masterwork Spear? Maybe up the tier a little bit, or do something to the spec to make these abilities either more powerful, longer lasting, and or maybe get a secondary effect. I don't know. They're definitely moving Melee away from the bleed style and focusing on what you're wielding, which takes us to the next ability. Just kidding. Takes us to Punish. Punish is remaining relatively the same. It will do 2.5 times more damage if your target is under 50% health, which I believe is much higher than what it is in the current game. It has a 24-second cooldown, but if you kill an enemy with Punish, you have the cooldown, making this like a great Slayer ability, right? Kill an enemy, change targets, next enemy, by the time you've got it to half health, it's nearly dead, you can use Punish, it's all cooldown, so really simple, intuitive use of Punish. I like the cooldown aspect of it a lot. But now we're really going to look into some major changes, which I don't know how I feel about Flurry. Flurry will still be a big 8-hit ability that does that is unique to two-handed. I say two-handed. Greater Flurry is still exclusive to dual wield. It still does 8 hits. The greater variant will still reduce the cooldown of Berserk, but you can see there is a new ability, which is the ability to heal you. You will be healed 25 plus 4% of each damage dealt. So at a minimum, you're going to heal 200 health, which isn't a lot, but it adds up, especially with the extra damage dealt. I don't know if it's damage dealt to the main target or to all targets. We'll have to test that out. I like this concept of giving Melee the ability to heal, but I don't know if locking it to dual wield is appropriate. They pulled out Blood Tendrils, and I feel like Blood Tendrils would make sense as a healing ability. It applies a bleed that heals you a percentage of the bleed, and maybe it can stack with Dismember somehow. You apply Dismember, and maybe it boosts the healing of Blood Tendrils, or maybe Blood Tendrils is like a self buff that when you then cast Blood Tendrils and then use Dismember, it boosts damage. It gives you like a vampirism effect, healing all damage you're doing to bleeding enemies. I don't know. I think it's wasted to remove Blood Tendrils entirely, and I think Blood Tendrils should have a healing effect. But we'll have to see what changes they make and what feedback they listen to. We're going to go into the other threshold that changed, which is Hurricane. Again, not a threshold anymore, but exclusive to two-handed still. And it effectively hasn't really changed. The biggest change, obviously, is the reset. If you can hit 7 targets at once, it will completely reset Hurricane without having to wait the 20 seconds. I think that sounds nicer than it is on paper. I think that target number should be reduced to like 4, maybe 5. I just think of like Telos, right? P4 if you're meleeing. You've only got 4 targets possibly hit while the golems are up, if you're not just sticking them in place. Great for Slayer. I can think of stuff like Enemu, dinosaurs, abyssal demons, right? Things that definitely pile you, and you can just spam Hurricane over and over again, but I think where it is now, this feels kind of weak, especially compared to Greater Flurry. Who knows? Maybe they're cooking up a Greater Hurricane. No idea. And so finally, let's talk about the ultimates, or rather the abilities that were ultimates and haven't been removed from the game. Melee's only got 2 true ultimates now, and that's Berserker and Overpower, which of course you use Overpower with the Zut Cape, and it becomes what was basically a really strong threshold, and that hasn't really changed. But let's look at Pulverize first, and Pulverize has basically had its default behavior changed to the passive effect it had when you were using the EZK along with the spec that applied the Flamebound Rival buff. So this has now become an extremely niche, useful. Again, they've removed ability classes. It's basically a threshold. It's a high cost threshold, but it's a great defensive option in that it does a big. This decreases the damage that you're going to take, which is probably the main selling point. There are stronger abilities that you can use that cost less. You combine this with a Greater Fury or a Chaos Roar. You get a pretty big hit out of it, but generally this is kind of like a filler ability if you don't have good EOFs, or again you need to sort of reduce damage that's coming in by 25%. It is locked to two-hand, so you just got to keep that in mind. That this isn't available for dual wielding. Becomes a pretty good ability overall. I liked using it with the EZK, and it's really good to see that the default behavior has been changed to basically being that passive effect. Meteor Strike has not necessarily changed. It's just now it is, again, what we would have called a threshold before all these changes. It only costs 40% adrenaline, which will certainly have to be tested along with the Rex that reduces the cost of Meteor Strike. I think it's the Bagrata Rex at the player on range. I'll have to check that out, but again, not reliant on crits, similar to the change to Incendiary Shot, which is now of course that shadow buff. So basic abilities just have a flat adrenaline boost, as well as giving you adrenaline every 0.6 seconds, and it lasts for 30 seconds. So 30 seconds is what? How many game ticks is that? 50 game ticks? If that's right, and again, I want to test this out, and I'll do that when I get to testing later. That's 150% adrenaline from using this ability, on top of the boosted basic, which doesn't sound right. This is a high requirement. It's not limited to two-handed, but I definitely want to check this out, because if this does what it says on paper, this is a really good ability that will give you a great passive adrenaline gain for melee, which of course is always adrenaline starved, right? So we'll have to check that for sure. And I'm going to definitely play with melee a lot more than I have. I haven't looked at it too much yet. The last ability we're going to look at is Berserk. Hasn't necessarily changed. It's still the same duration. Increased damage taken, increased damage dealt. The only change is that it will reset your Greater Fury when you cast it, so it kind of gives you a free crit, so you can kind of plan that out. You can Greater Fury, drop an ability, Berserk, Greater Fury again into something powerful. You could also probably save the Greater Fury, and I'll have to test that out. Greater Fury, Zerk ability, Greater Fury, another strong hard-hitting ability. And that's kind of similar to how Living Death resets the Touch of Death necromancy ability, giving you like that extra chance to build your necrosis stacks. So that this feels like it's definitely inspired by that. So with all those changes outlined, let's get into what I think people want to see, and even though I'm not the best at it, and that's combat. I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a short little video demo on each style. I'm going to go to the Rex Matriarcs. I don't like standing there in wars doing a dummy. It's also extremely crowded at the moment. A lot of people are testing out these changes, and I always like to sort of take these changes live to actual combat scenarios. And I think, hey, since I'm going to test all three, why don't we go take a look at the Rex Matriarchs? They've got a good health pool without it being too bloated. They're pretty simple bosses, so I can just kind of focus on different abilities, combinations. So let's go ahead and let's start with ranged. All right, so I'm here now. I'm gonna do ranged first, like I said. Rex Matriarchs. I've got a few different things with me. I'm mostly gonna camp the Dracolich, although I suppose I should switch to Serena when I test out the crossbows. Jazz Book. I'm gonna use Dark Magic. I want to test a couple different weapons. I'm gonna do a few different things. I should have brought Darkness, but that's all right. So let's just get in there and try this out. I'm definitely gonna struggle with what do you call it? The ability there. Let's do that. Let's see how that looks. That's me. I use the imbue. Let's look at a Rico. Let's do an imbue again. Maybe a spec. That was nice. That hit good. Oop. I always mess that up. I should have dropped that right there, huh? That was Bush League. Oh, I killed it. Okay. Why can't I do anything? So it looks like you do need a target, huh? No, okay, so if you do that, you don't. I don't know why I bothered looting. So I think maybe I'll do an Imbue Shadow to start this kill out. Let's go. Why don't I split soul at the start of this? Let's do that. Let's kind of see what kind of adren gain. Just look at that. I got like all that adren back right out of the gate. That was awesome. Ooh, and I got a nice proc. So that was a great kill, huh? Ooh, still getting hit by the overcharge. It's like, did you like? I didn't. That basically replaces What's a? I don't know why I keep looting. I mean that like basically got rid of any need to do the hydrates. A hydrates bolt switch. That gave me everything back. That's the play there, huh? As you cast that and you go straight into a ricochet, and you're gonna get all your adrenaline back. You can see I haven't really used corruption shot at all. It doesn't really feel necessary. Drop that. So you definitely want to try and. Oop, I did that way too soon. Drop that before the boss spawns. I keep trying to use my old keybind for what do you call it? Dazing shot. So yeah, I mean I am consistently getting kills at the overcharge without even having to use that swiftness. Remembering the spec on that one helped. So why don't we see how a Hex Thunderbolt kill looks compared to the Last Guardian? I think the strength is about the same. I do have the innate mastery on the Last Guardian, but there's no spec here, so I want to see kind of what this bow does. And more to the point, I want to try to keep track of the spawn and get Gales up before I do anything. Give it 3, 2, 1. That was bad. We'll go on hit, build the Dren. Get all that back up. Tendrils are still really powerful, huh? Snipe. And those hits were big because of the Hex Hunter, obviously, but not too different. So why don't I go ahead and switch to a crossbow. I haven't really used much for crossbows lately. I do think it's not going to be as good because the bows aren't as good. The arrows aren't as good. Bolts aren't as good as the arrows. And unless I think of anything extra, I'm not really going to comment too much over this. The Gales does not last very long. I'm having trouble with my basic. Definitely weaker. I also didn't play as good, admittedly. This doesn't matter. I should have. So if I'm testing, you know what I should do? I'm gonna make a quick switch for the crossbow testing. Okay, so what I've done is I switched to Serenic while I test the crossbows, which means I switched out my ring for Reavers, which will lower my accuracy, but I want to see how everything kind of clicks here. So let's see how that looks with. Do a spec. 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 Oh yeah, I'm getting a ton of adrenaline with this, huh? Wow, that was... Ooh. With the Hydrix bolt, that's a lot of adrenaline to dump. Wow. Okay. Whew, that was pretty good. So I'm gonna build a kill, and I'm gonna do a kill with ECB, and then kind of give my impressions on ranged. I wish we still had the quiver abilities. Maybe I'm just a dumbass and I can't find them. That was without an overload, by the way. And yes, I still have a physical ECB. I suppose I don't need it. Okay. So that kill was also good, not quite as good, but I guess there's no point in me doing physical ECB. Let me go with, what are the perks look like? Pieces, chroming. About the same. Yeah, I'll go with it. Keep it simplistic. So I don't know, one less EOF switch to make. Two. Come on. I haven't even spec'd, by the way. Absolutely bodied. This shadow ability is fucking busted. That's my impression on this. That is giving you so much adrenaline for such a long period of time. That's my thought on this, is that is fucking ripped. I'm not even really noticing a difference between not having the sorry, excuse me, what was it, that shatter, shard, shatter strike, piercing, whatever it was called in the original version of the beta, because that is just so ungodly powerful. And you can stack those, so that's good to know. You are just, look at this, ready? So I didn't get a lot of hits on it. Ready, and then basically full adrenaline. Let me snap and this. Look at that, just wow. So my thought on range is that, and comparing it to the last beta, is that this is in a good spot. This on-hit stuff is great. I'm not even fully optimized. This is really, I'm not even juggling, right? I am just going simple, straight, what you call it? I guess up the I am just going pure like adrenaline maxing, and I am just dumping everything I have, and I am dropping this boss so fast. Granted, easy boss, I know, but it's crazy how powerful this is. Right, this is a bad rotation, but I'm still just like, and now we'll switch to this. Do that. That was a bad rotation, but still, like, good God. I really like this. I think range is in a great spot. You've got a couple hard-hitting abilities that I didn't even touch because I was just focused on adrenaline maxing. I really like range. Range feels really good. Hey, I got a drop. I'm rich. Let's go. All right. So that's enough of that. I'm gonna go put on some mage gear and look at mage next. Okay. So now I am gonna test out magic. I haven't even played with magic in a long time. So just in general, this is gonna be a bit of a curve. I feel like it hasn't changed too much despite the sweeping changes. I feel like the ability count is still really high. It hasn't really changed its core identity, so to speak. So let's try that out. Let's do that. Oh, so I did that, didn't even trigger. Cool. Now I am curious if that is doing. Ooh, let's get it. All right. I don't have smoke tendies on my bar, do I? Smoke tendies. Get my stuns. One thing I forgot to talk about is that they gave you multiple tiers of stun to work with. That kind of replaces the threshold stuns. So as you hit a certain level in each skill, you'll get a second cast of the stun. I don't feel like it's a suitable replacement just because I'm trying to think here. It's not a suitable replacement because you don't get deeper stun. Like if I had used deep impact, I would have had a slightly longer stun to work with, and I would have had to kite quite as much against the boss here. I hope maybe they make that sort of like one of those, I don't know what to call it, spectral sight kind of abilities, where as you use it each time, the ability changes, like on recasts, and then you can oh, I'm disconnecting. Oh no, what's happening? I don't know what that was. You know, let's change it up. Let's do this. All right. Let's see how we look with dual wield here for a moment, huh? So we saw the reduction cost on my threshold. Reduction cost on the EOF. Oh, man, he's specking me. She is specking me. For pronouns here. Yes, I made that joke. So that, I'm not really going to count that kill. That was a bad kill. I don't know what happened with the connection there. Must have been something on the beta server. Let's switch to Exsanguinate. I want to see if I still get the stacks from it. God, I hate this debuff so much. I want to see if I still get the stacks from Insanguinate, and then I also kind of want to get an idea of... I should have had tech for this. I should have brought a tech switch. I want to get an idea of, like, how I can juggle the bleed, because, again, you want to use a Dragon Breath, but if you use Dragon Breath, you're gonna... I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Let's do that. Yeah, see, it still has the Carapack effect, so it makes it harder to maintain your bleeds. And unless I get lucky with Paradox, it's not gonna... What did that change? Oh, I'm using the... I've been using that charge ability as if it was... Wreck. This is the learning curve here. I gotta keep checking this. So what does this do again? That boosts crit, it boosts the Dread save, and it boosts Dragon Breath, right? It makes Dragon Breath. Okay. Alright. Now that I have a better idea of what I'm doing. Let's go. Runic Charge now. So that gives you 15 seconds. I'll Spellbook swap. Get that ready. Hope I didn't do that too soon. What? That's something with the ability. That is something with what I'm doing. Those ability combos are something. Alright, hold on. I want to see if this keeps happening. What the hell? Okay. I'm not sure what's going on here with this game server. If it's the game server or if I'm glitching for some reason because of what do you call it? Like an ability combination that I'm using. I don't know. It's all very, very odd. But let's just keep trying it, seeing what can happen. All right, let's get back in there. Rejoin. I'm gonna do that against. I want to see if this like specific combo that's causing problems. Let's do this. Yeah. What the hell is that? What the hell? So I just can't use that? Is that what's going on? That's weird. Put more bleeds. I want to know what that changes to. I gotta check that out. What does that do? I don't even want to touch it right now. I'm like afraid to. Sanguinate charge. Okay, we'll have to check that out. Okay, so they did think about the Exsanguinate. I thought they weren't going to have anything for it. I don't know why I wonder if it's is it the spellbook swap that's making me disconnect, maybe? This has been a bad demo. I should go do anything else. I don't know if it's boss, if it's something with one of these abilities that's causing something to break. It's very, very peculiar. It's curious. It's why is Entangle causing problems like that? Is it Entangle that's breaking and being... This is impossible to test right now. Absolutely impossible to test. I mean, this is all the same, right? Nothing different here. All right, let me just try it by kiting. It's got that. That's got to be it. It's got to be the spell swap and tangle that's breaking things. This has been bad. I don't know what that is. I'm gonna have to definitely gonna report that if that's what it is. I'll initiate this last fight without entangle, I'll just kite the whole time and see what happens. I also want to check what Sanguinate charge does. So right, this does, the regular charge is higher crit, 20 crit, 40 adrenaline, 260 to 310. This is so much harder than it has to be. More bleeds, more bleeds. All right, let's see what this does now. 20, 40. Oh, it's just blood charged. Oh, okay, so it just compulses 2 more times. That's the only difference. Okay. It's kind of hard to comment on Magic. It feels mostly the same, with just slightly less tools to work with. The cleaner auto cast. You know, I haven't touched Chain, right, as like a filler ability. I don't have much to say about Magic. It feels generally the same. You know, if it wasn't glitching out, I would have been able to test it a little better. I don't have much to say, so I'm gonna switch to the melee gear and dive into Rathus. Alright, so melee was the most changed style, and so melee is the one that I want to look into the most if I can. So I'm gonna head over to Rathus. I want to test out the Ezek, I want to test out Dual Wield, I want to check out the Masterwork Spear, different ability combos. Like there's a lot to it. So let's just dive right in, literally. Ooh, that's different. What is this? Oh, it's just giving me all those pop-ups. Okay. Take a look at that. But not what I should have done, but oh, I should. I don't have a. Hey, this is a great start, isn't it? Probably gonna die. Yeah, let's keep ourselves alive with Pulverize. I was not thinking about anything I was doing on the skill, I'll be honest. That's got a pretty good reset, huh? Alright, that was an awful, tremendously bad, terrible start. So why don't we go into the next kill and try Spear and that Dismember update, that sort of that ability line, we could call it. Hopefully I don't screw it up. Yeah, I was overloaded. I had to book up. That was a warm up. There's a lot to remember with all these changes to melee for sure. All right. So the first thing I want to see is do these. So the bleeds will stack. All right. So let's see what kind of damage those bleeds are going to do with that. It's a big hit. I mean, the damage wasn't bad. Let's see, let's test that Adren gain. Yeah, that just gives you constant adrenaline, doesn't it? Okay. That's a pretty significant game changer. Increases the duration of bleeds by half. The bleeds weren't too bad. I like that they stack, so you could just dump them all if that's what you needed to do. Let me go. Let me test the Zek again. No, let's do wheels. Let's do the dual wheels kill. Let's see how that Flurry Heal's gonna do for us, huh? Big hits. Oh, no, Punish still did good damage. Definitely don't fill our Chaos Roar like I did on accident. But not much different there. Pretty powerful still for dual wield. Let's go. The healing would seem like it was pretty good. I'm gonna... Ooh, idea. I'm gonna drop Flurry with G-Barge and then switch to Terrasar and see what that does. I'm not testing out one specific thing here. I'm kind of all over the place, but lots of new toys, you know? Excitement. I gotta stop shutting stuff off. I don't really need to preserve resources here. There we go. Did I lose it? Can't tell if I lost it or not. See what kind of damage that does with. Yeah, kind of expected. Let's see if I force a crit on Punish. 10,000. Great. I gotta get used to where all my new keybinds are. Kind of fucked that up. I'm gonna do it again. Ooh, let's do it with Zerk this time. There's a lot here. A lot I'm taking in. It feels clunky. It does feel weaker, but like the more that I'm using it now, I am wondering if it's just because I'm not used to it. No point in dropping a bleed. That was dumb. Alright, let's see if I get my adrenaline back up. Let's see if I can get that back up if I drop a kill with that. That's a lot of adrenaline. I'm like floored. Wow. I don't sound like I'm actually amazed, but I am. So you could just dump that and like, that's a lot of adrenaline. Okay. Let's go a full. I want to see what this bad boy does, right? So I got Flamebound Rival on. Do that, so I'm not taking any damage. I'm slowing down because I deliberately want to test something like this. I want to see if I'm still rocking shit with the Ezek. This fight just isn't long enough to benefit from that at all. Look at that, you got a oh, yield! It's awful. And this isn't optimized right now. Not optimized at all as I play around and test things out with melee. Let's do a big one. Let's go. Draconic energy, let's go! Ugh. No, I'm gonna... Alright. I'm gonna do Zerk into Meteor and just fucking dump everything I've got. Just poo all over this dinosaur. That's the goal. Spawn in 3, 2, 1. That was off. Wow! Ah, that was good. And I'm gonna have full adrenaline on my next skill. Okay. I'm seeing where this lies now. Oh, excuse me, I'm getting how synergies. Bleeds feel weak. Bleeds definitely feel weak. I don't know why I would even do it without the spear. I think the spear needs some kind of update. I think they need to maybe again bring back blood tendrils in some way. We're just gonna tank this. Right, and then I can just dump this, and then just dump all my shit. Look at that, I can't even keep up. I'm gaining so... Oh, fuck, come on. Ran out of target there. This meteor is excellent. I don't even have a Rex in my pets. I'm pretty sure I've got 2 Malatopses. I want to see if I can drop them again like that. We'll use the Pterosaur. And this also isn't like, I could be doing damage if I had the Salamancy necklace on. With this gear, I could probably Reaver Max. Like, I feel like you just stack the bleeds so you don't benefit from champions too much. Melee is... Now that I've played with it a little more, it's not quite as bad as I initially said. However, it still needs work. That was a long delay there. Shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that, but yeah, melee is... I feel like the burst is definitely still there. It's just learning the new rotations and such. It's nice I'm not juggling like I used to. You know, I can just kind of camp a single weapon or weapons. And you know, you can optimize, obviously. You can... Oh, excuse me. I could juggle. I can't tell. I'm going to try this one more time. I want to see if dropping flurry into and then a weapon switch makes me lose it. Because it doesn't show on the bar anymore. So I'm not sure exactly. I'm having trouble sussing that one out. I can't tell if I lose it or not. Go one more time. I'm gonna see if I see, because it should be 8 hits. But I don't know if I'm seeing 8 hits. I'm gonna G-barge into flurry and then get off and see what happens. Because I know, like, you would lose passive effects if you switched weapons on G-barge, but I feel like I'm just losing the ability entirely. And it doesn't feel like I should be, but and it could just be an issue with the buff icon. Maybe they made some kind of a change behind the scenes under the hood to how G-barge works. Okay, I'm gonna get off. No, you don't lose it. Okay. I really could not tell. It was genuinely driving me crazy. And you just drop a meteor, get all your adrenaline back. Kill him. If I had had Fury, that would have done it. So you can see Punish there, kill them, have the recharge time from 24 to 12. But alright, I think I'm gonna wrap that up here and give final thoughts. Final thoughts are ... And so really that's just a quick overview of the 3 styles, the general changes they've made. You know, it's extremely difficult to know where everything is going to go. I think things could change dramatically in the next couple of weeks. We could see abilities return. We could see, you know, some major tweaks. I think there's some very powerful tools, let's say, that are going to get nerfed for sure by the time this all goes live at the end of February. I think it's going to get delayed. I think there's going to be some sweeping changes made to range. I think they're going to reevaluate sort of Melee's identity to make things feel, I don't know, more cohesive, I suppose. The Melee divide specifically between dual wield and two-handed combat is a lot. And not necessarily in a bad way. I feel like the skill is disconnected at the moment, kind of missing not a clear identity, but it's I can't even really quantify what feels off about Melee. I think it's because Melee was such a complex, complicated skill, and now it's been sort of changed to having, it might have the least amount of abilities, honestly. I'm not too sure. I'd have to sit and count. That was awesome. You know, that core identity is there. I mean, we just saw it, right? Those big, fat, jumbo hits. You know, those haven't gone anywhere. Melee is still, in its essence, just big, fat damage, big old hits, and that's still great. It still feels really nice. Magic, you know, inversely doesn't feel like it's changed at all. No, Magic feels the same, just with some new window dressings, I suppose. The big thing for this, and I say this if you're a lapsed player watching this for some reason, or like somebody who hasn't really touched combat in a while, is the hardest part is going to be the learning curve, because it is awkward to be doing this sort of necromancy combat style with the non-necromancy combat styles. It's very different. It lends itself differently. You have to think about the skills differently. Think about what you're doing differently. I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but if you've been playing as long as I have, there's a lot of built-in muscle memory, and there's a lot that has completely changed with this game, with combat being this way. And honestly, it might be a little frightening, you know? Some people are calling this EOC2, EOC of EOC. I don't know if I'd go that far, because the core, gameplay is there, abilities, that all that sort of stuff. Get a big hit here real quick. Oh yeah, like abilities, it's all still there. It's that, I keep saying, fundamental flow of how combat plays out. You're not juggling weapons as much. You're not juggling abilities. You're unloading your adrenaline. You're building up to big old hits, and just really trying to remember that all those basics that you were using have been consolidated into a single ability. My overall thoughts are, I do think once we've gotten through all the growing pains, that this will be better for the game. I think there's a lot they have to continue to balance and look at, things they haven't considered, certain weapon interactions, specials, passives. Even now, I'm not playing all that great, but I'm also, I've got divided focus, but you know, when it's said and done, I think the game will come out on the other side better. There's more room for growth and new things to be added with time, things to be returned. We're still early in this beta, and we'll have to see what changes they make later this week. I'll check them out if I've got time. Let me know what you think if you tried out the beta, if this is kind of making you come back, making you feel more comfortable with combat and things like that. Still a long way to go, that's for sure. And I'm gonna keep playing around, and you know, if there's any if there's any big changes, maybe I'll do a short video on them. We'll see. But until then, you know, take it easy. Thanks for watching.